We have sunshine. Of course, our hearts go out to everyone impacted by Hurricane Helene. But we are happy to say, if you want to take your mind off of some of the events that have unfolded not too far from this racetrack, we have the perfect day lined up for you, and it's going to all start with qualifying. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Eric Brennan alongside of Blake McCandless. Jacqueline Drake is in the mix down there with what is a lot of people with one agenda. Make that two, Blake. Get in the show and get a clock. That's what these teams are trying to do.
You're exactly right, and this qualifying is a big step towards trying to get that grandfather clock or just make the show, as you alluded to, at the end of the night. Of course, we go into the single car qualifying. We're not going to hand out one position in the feature race later tonight, but again, so much goes into qualifying here with the 25 laps that these drivers will have through heats to try and transfer into this race. Your starting position here, when you talk about that, Eric, is so important, and this has to be one of the more pressure-packed instances of qualifying that you have throughout the entire season, right? Because of that fact, these heat races tend to be chaotic, and you have to think about the fact, Eric, this has already been a very busy morning for these teams. You mentioned the weather that was rolling through. They made the call a couple of days prior to these teams showing up here that all on-track activity would be canceled for Friday's practice session, of which these teams, they use every minute that they get to practice, they put to good use. So there's a lot of anxiety down there in the pit area, a lot of excitement. But I think for these teams that just came off a 90-minute practice session with 80 cars and very little time to try and dial their cars in, very important. I have to imagine that these moments on pit road, getting ready to go out, have to be some of the most just absolutely anxiety-inducing moments of a race car driver's career.
Have to say, there was some apprehension by some teams as far as how the schedule unfolded with that practice session. Only 2 slowdowns during that session, and what was rather clean all the way throughout the early morning. And a lot of teams were able to get themselves somewhat of an idea as to how this day may unfold. And Blake, you alluded to one of the most important facets of this session. This race, of course, now in its 39th running, dates back to 1985. It's undergone some different variations and changes as far as how it flows and what the rules are. This weekend and this edition, qualifying does not lock anybody into the show at all. It does pay $5,000 for the Martinsville Speedway Quick Time Award, so there's a good bit of cash on the line for these teams outside of the purse they hope to take home when we get to race time later. But a pole-winning time does not guarantee you're going to be one of our 40 starters when we take the green flag later on tonight. That's a lot of weight that's on the shoulders of those qualifying races coming up later, and you've got to time your way in good here to make sure you're not in the thick of the mess that we're going to see when they come up a few hours from now.
And I think that's why for so many of these teams, there was a lot of going back and forth in how you wanted to dial your car in. Again, you think about 80 cars that you were pretty much having to fight track time with over a 90-minute session, and you think about the fact, how much do you want to focus on race trim? How much do you want to focus on your qualifying effort for this afternoon? Because yes, qualifying is important. You get good track position. You are set up in a very good position to try and transfer to the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 feature later on in the night. But you're going to have a fast race car to do it. There are really yes, there's a lot of chaos here, but there's really no surprise winners when it comes to Martinsville. You have to have a car and a team and a driver that is completely dialed in. Everything has to align perfectly for these races to fall in your favor.
We have 8 former winners trying to make the field yet again here this tonight for 2024. We have several drivers like that of 3-time Cars Tour champion Bobby McCarty, who you just saw a moment ago, who has done just about everything in his late model stock car career but win this race. Local track champions like that of Jacob Borst. 76 cars took part in the morning practice session. Again, 80 were entered. Obviously, there were several circumstances in the surrounding area that may have impacted a couple of drivers being able to make the trip out here this weekend. 76 cars slated to line up for qualifying. 40 will make the race after the 25-lap qualifying races a little bit later on this afternoon. But perhaps the most important qualifying session for all of these competitors all year long is what is on the horizon. And Blake, I think one of the most unique facets of this is this qualifying order was set in reverse of what we saw on the practice charts. We just saw Connor Hall wrap up his second consecutive national title with the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series. He was the fastest in practice, and he is the last car that we can see on the pit lane, and he'll be the last one to go out to try to lay down a flyer and win that $5,000 cash prize should he set quick time.
And again, interesting to see how this track will change throughout the qualifying session, but one thing's for certain. If you were faster earlier on today, you mentioned Connor Hall, who was up there, had a lot of names that I think a lot of late model stock car fans will be very familiar with over the last couple of months. If you've been keeping track of racing that's been going on throughout the area and some of the touring series, as well as going on around the Commonwealth of Virginia. And that's what I love about this race, Eric, is that you get kind of the best of both worlds. You have some of those teams that, yes, they have the employees, they have the great drivers, but you also have some weekly competitors that come on out here and have a very strong showing. And I think Trevor Ward proved it last year that you can take a small family-owned operation, build a really fast car, and you can still win the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. So many stories throughout the field to cover, but you get the best of both worlds in this race, and it's why it's so meaningful to not only make the race for some of these teams, but to have the opportunity to win and take home that coveted grandfather clock that all of these teams want to bring home more than the prize money, I would say, in some circumstances.
You mentioned the format of this session, the fact that no one is safe. In fact, the only caveat, as we see our defending winner in Trevor Ward, the only caveat of any potential schedule changes that may have happened would have benefited that driver right there. There was a line in the entry blank that should qualifying and the heat races not run to their conclusion. The only provisional would be for the defending winner, being that we're ready to rack these cars up and go. Everyone is operating under the same umbrella where nothing is guaranteed, and to put themselves in the best spot for tonight's race would be to lay down a flyer in this qualifying session. You see 7-time now South Boston Speedway track champion Peyton Sellers and his team, rolling him up into position as he looks to net yet another grandfather clock on his incredible racing career. 2022 winner is that of Sellers, hoping to do so again here 2 years removed from his first ValleyStar Credit Union 300 win. He was pretty sporty in practice. We'll see him later on once we start to roll the cars out here for qualifying for this year's running of this race.
And I think it's worth mentioning, too, of course, there's so much hype built around this one race, but this is also the third and final leg of the Virginia Late Model Stock Car Triple Crown, of which Peyton Sellers, who you just saw a moment ago, sitting second right now in terms of average finishes in the point standings that are only determined off average finish. There's no points per position, there's no laps led bonuses, nothing like that. It's just strictly where you finish at the end of the night that will dictate where you are in the lineup. As you see Carson Quapple, Carter Langley, a couple of teams that were very fast in the early practice sessions waiting by their car, and they'll be some of the last cars that we see go out in qualifying. But it is worth noting, Eric, that with these drivers that we have, as far as the top 10 in the Triple Crown standings are going, you can see right there on your screen, Brendan Queen, Caden Honeycutt not in attendance with us tonight, but also the other thing that comes with winning this Triple Crown is you have to start all three races. So Connor Hall, Peyton Sellers, obviously Connor Hall has an average finish of 1.5 after winning the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson 200 at South Boston Speedway. Just came up shy of trying to do a clean sweep at the Hampton Heat, but he finished second. If someone like him or Peyton Sellers were to not make the starting field, all of a sudden that picture of the standings looks entirely different, because you have to compete in all three races to be eligible to try and win the Virginia Late Model Triple Crown.
That's a great point that you brought up in our pre-production meeting, how making the show carries such an even greater emphasis for the drivers fighting for that Virginia Triple Crown championship. Well, we're not going to wait any further, as the first car is going to roll here for ValleyStar Credit Union 300 qualifying. Again, this is to time your way into the best starting position possible, and a big moment right off the bat. That is Connor Lee Branch, who is going to be the first car on the racetrack, and he almost just about lost it coming to the green flag. Now, because of the change in the schedule, officials have decided that this qualifying format is going to include 2 cars on the racetrack at a time. We'll start by telling you about the driver of the 05 car. That is the Louisville, North Carolina native, and the Robin sandblasting and key appraisals entry of Connor Lee Branch, who had that big moment. This is his first attempt at this race for that of Connor Lee Branch. On the left side of your picture, the second car that is rolled out onto the Speedway for this qualifying session. Number 15 of Tony Houseman. Blake, it did not take long to see how on the button some of these drivers and teams are going to be fresh out of the pit lane, as Connor Lee Branch will be the first car to come to the checkers to conclude his lap. Tony Houseman, the quickest of the two, 21.259. Both cars separated by 0.06 of a second. Blake, that may be indicative that this session may roll by quite quickly.
I think you're right, but again, indicative of how much pressure is on these drivers. You know, you're just getting your tires up to temperature there, coming out of 3 and 4, and all of a sudden you have a big moment. But that just goes to show the nerves, the butterflies. They're present whenever you're qualifying at your weekly show, but especially here at Martinsville, because we know how important it is, as the next duo of cars will hit the racetrack, led by this number 19. Out of Kernersville, North Carolina, this is Jessica Can looking to make her first start in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 later on tonight, followed by the 3 of Trey Williams, with a lot of work being done on that number 3 car in the earlier practice sessions, as the Jersey Mike Chevrolet out of Powhatan, Virginia, will make his first laps. Jessica Can goes fastest of the 4 we've seen thus far, and Trey Williams will do the same, a 20.979 for Jessica Can through 1 lap. We'll see if lap number 2 is faster for the Black Acid Apparel Chevrolet, and it looks like indeed that will be the case, finding just over 1/10 of a second is that of Jessica Can. Williams to the stripe in that famous Micro Gamma Fonted number 3 car, and Trey Williams will in fact jump up ahead of Jessica Can. Time of record 20.777 for Trey Williams.
Should be noted, every spot in this qualifying order is going to impact a lot in terms of where you line up in your heat races. 4 qualifying races to come later on this afternoon. We've had 4 cars on the racetrack so far. Landon Nestor, who was a late add to the field, was scheduled to be the first car out. He did not make a run at this point. As we continue on with our next car on the racetrack, driving the number 74 in the entry here out of Garner, North Carolina. This is the airbag specialist and the sign shop Mitchell Mock Performance number 74, Robert Arch. Late model stock car winner at Southern National Motorsports Park during the Speed Week the track held in March. This is his ValleyStar Credit Union 300 debut for that of the driver, the number 74. Another Jersey Mike's car in the field. This is a team car for 3 that we saw out on the racetrack not that long ago. This is GR Waldrop out of Midlothian, Virginia. This is a family-owned car. And this is his 7th attempt at the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, having made the race 4 times prior, including last year. He's run both Triple Crown events so far, has out of the driver in the 01. See what he can do as he jumps to the top of the charts on his first lap for that 01 car of GR Waldrop. Going to try to go faster yet here this time by as he comes to the checkers. Waldrop will stand on the lap that he laid down the first time through, clear of the field by 1/4 of a second, while Robert Arch was 3rd of the 6 cars that have been on the racetrack so far.
In terms of the times that we saw a little bit earlier in practice, towards the top end of the field, what it was in the low 20s, that a lot of those cars that mocked up in qualifying were running a little bit earlier today, so the time that many of these drivers are aiming to hit, as they have 2 attempts at qualifying. They're releasing them as soon as the first car gets in the middle of turns 3 and 4. They'll release the second car that is in line, as the first one out on this duo of cars will be the 18B out of Simpsonville, South Carolina, the V6 Conivers.com machine of Anthony Adams, going to be the first one to lead the 23A of Zachary Dobbs. The Orion Truck Trailer and Repair Chevrolet out of Mooresville, North Carolina, for the 24-year-old, coming down to the stripe this time to complete his first lap. And Adams in the 18B will slot into 3rd. You can see him on your screen right now going through turns 3 and 4. Right now, 3rd fastest for the 18B to 20.783, and in fact, he'll do about 2/10 better, so a big pickup here on lap number 2 for Anthony Adams in the 18B car, 20.593. Meanwhile, the 23A of Zachary Dabbs will slot in just behind in 3rd at 20.671 for that number 23 car.
Should the practice times from earlier on today continue to hold form as to what we're seeing in this qualifying session, we can expect cars to continuously leapfrog their way up towards the top of the pylon. GR Waldrop right now still the quickest in the 01 with a 20.501. Here is Landon S. Huffman in the Pinnacle Racing Group, Knights Company's number 28A. His father Shane ran this race back in 1999, fresh off a runner-up effort at the Bobby Isaac Memorial at Hickory. This is his first attempt at the ValleyStar Credit Union 300s for a race team that has been doing big things across all of the motorsports landscape. Landon himself has been running quite well as well, hoping to be able to make his first Martinsville attempt here this afternoon once the qualifying races are in the books. Huffman is not the only number 28 car on the racetrack as part of the duo that are entering the Speedway at this time. The other driver will be the Scott Lang Racing number 28 out of Huntingtown, Maryland, the Trade Point Terminals and Owl Meats entry. That is the number 28 of Dustin Storm. As Storm was scheduled to be the next car on the racetrack at the time. Huffman's going to clock in quickest, 20.482. Storm is not going to make the call. We move on to the 7A. That is going to be Carl Bedzewski, who is the next car on the racetrack. Dustin Storm was scheduled to be out there, but Bedzewski and his Anchor Truck Accessories, number 7D, and his family-owned operation is going to time in fourth fastest to wrap up that pair of cars in their time trial efforts.
Next two cars out, you can see exiting turn number 4 right now, somebody who is plenty familiar with running big events, and I mean running as in promoting big events, says this is a long way from home, both in terms of distance and the racetrack and how it races. This is the number 35 out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Steve Zacharias in the R.J. Young Chevrolet. And a long ways from home, but again, somebody that promotes Florence Motor Speedway, the Diamond in the Southeast, in Timminsville, South Carolina. Eric, one of the great pleasures that we have is that we get to travel to Steve's racetrack and see all that he has done over there, and now he gets the opportunity to try an attempt at the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, and his first qualifying lap is going to be a good one, a 20.582, as you see the number 99 also joining Zacharias out on the racetrack. That is the 99A of Austin Samara out of Reedsville, South Carolina. And down to the checkered flag for Austin Samaro to complete his second lap is going to be just behind that of Zacharias, a 20.507 for the number 35, followed by a 541 for the 99A of Austin Samaro.
So Landon S. Huffman and his Pinnacle Racing Group number 28 remains the fastest as we welcome the next driver onto the racetrack. This is a driver who was out of the race car for about 10 months before returning to his home track at Ace Speedway earlier in 2024. He also ran the Hampton Heat portion of the Triple Crown, finishing in the top 25. This is family-owned operation of the Draper Lumber Company number 8 out of Burlington, North Carolina. Left side of your picture is going to be that of Thomas Scott, while the Hettinger Racing number 71 is back with a returning competitor in the car. Made his Cars Tour start a couple of weeks back. Former winner at Dominion Raceway in South Boston. This is his first attempt at the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Out of Stafford, Virginia, Aaron Donnelly is in the number 71 here tonight for the Hettinger Racing Chevrolet. And Aaron Donnelly right to the top as he comes to the line there by a tenth of a second, 20.379 for that of Aaron Donnelly, while Thomas Scott will come to the checkers to complete his second lap, and he will match the car number 8th quickest for car number 8 as Donnelly will try to improve on a lap time this time through. Checkered flag for Aaron Donnelly. He will slow down on his second lap, but is the provisional pole sitter as we have had 14 cars on the racetrack so far.
And as you mentioned earlier, very quickly moving along this line of cars as soon as that number 71 finally getting towards the entry of pit road, they are sending out the next car in line, and you can see the Colleague Racing, TC Construction, and B Elite Auto Chevrolet hitting the racetrack right now to start the opening lap. No dead lap like we would see in a lot of late model stock car races around this area. Out of Liberty, North Carolina, it is Ross Boo Boo Dalton, the 29-year-old piloting that number 50 car who made this race on his first attempt back in 2016 and looking to get back after a couple attempts since then, as Ross Boo Boo Dalton will come to the line and clock in at a 20.625, joined on the racetrack right now by the 17 of Jason Myers, who coincidentally enough is just ahead of the number 50. Not too much separation between these two cars as Myers and the Billy's AC Service Chevrolet out of Hurt, Virginia will complete his qualifying effort. Right now, Dalton a little bit further down the board than I'm sure he would like at a 20.611 would be good enough for the 8th position. Jason Myers, you can see right now, slowest car that we've seen so far, sitting in the 16th position. You can see a lot of damage that is on the right front fender of that race car that was likely incurred in one of the 2 instances that we had with incidents in practice earlier today. So a little bit of damage, slowing down that 17 car, although a pickup on lap 2 will net Jason Myers 2 more spots in the 14th position.
Again, this qualifying session setting the lineup for the 4 qualifying races that will be coming up later today, with the top 10 will lock their way into the 2024 ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Next on the racetrack out of Goldsboro, North Carolina, this is the Newsom family racing team. The Pennington Automotive number 44A of Dylan Newsom, making his first ValleyStar Credit Union 300 attempt in his career. He's a multi-time late model stock car winner at Southern National Motorsports Park, trying his hand at the lap time that Aaron Donnelly laid down at a 20.379, the current time to beat, as Newsom is hanging out the back end in 1 and 2. While Newsom works his way down the back straightaway, the second car that is on the racetrack is going to be the 0A, Kingsport, Tennessee's, an R&S race car entry. It's a moving plumbing car that is Keith Helton, what is a Scott Bloomquist tribute that he originally intended to debut here, but was able to have enough time to get it ready for World 100 weekend. Helton certainly carrying the hearts and minds of many of the dirt racing hopefuls who are going to be watching along all throughout the day. As we close out that session, Helton was 6th quickest in that 0A car, and as for the 44A of Dylan Newsom, 14th fastest. Both cars returned to the pit area and we rolled the next pair.
And off of turn number 4 already, starting to approach kind of the back straightaway where they are releasing the second car. You can see the 7B plastered on the side of the number 7B Twin City Motor Exchange Ford out of Tatesville, Virginia. This is Blaine Harrison. Will come to the stripe this time, first lap. And man, you can really see there on the onboard just how much these drivers are wheeling. I love the bright gloves too. You really get a sense of how much they're hanging out the rear ends of these race cars. His first lap for Blaine Harrison will be 7th fastest at a 20.578. Second driver that will now, just ahead of him, come down to complete his first lap. You see him on the right-hand side of your screen behind the wheel of the number 57 for the Carroll Speed Shop out of Claremont, North Carolina, the High Rock Vodka Machine, piloted by Landon Huffman, as Blaine Harrison's second lap will vault him up into third, 20.431, and Huffman goes fastest at a 20.366 on his first lap. Will lap number 2 be better for that of Landon Huffman? And he actually slows down just a hair. So Landon Huffman right now fastest so far of the 20 cars that have taken the time. I know we were watching some of the practice times earlier, Eric, and I'm sure Landon going to be happy with improving a little bit upon that here in this qualifying session.
You want to talk about a driver who has a one that got away story? Look no further than this race 1 year ago in that thrilling battle with the eventual winner Trevor Ward. Landon Huffman with Carroll Speed Shop this time around, hoping 2024 is the year. This car may look just
sideways.
Yeah, I was about to say. It may look like the car in which we saw Landon Pendleton drive to a championship at Dominion Raceway yet again. It is the same Sellers race team. New driver behind the wheel, Bruce Anderson out of South Boston, Virginia, the Pendleton Forest Products car, hanging it out in turns 1 and 2. Has 4 prior starts in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 with a best finish of 10th in 2013, and he timed in 6th fastest despite the bobble on his first go-around. Well, Anderson's going to try to better that lap time here, coming down to the checkers. Will follow Anderson to the line. Second lap is going to be quicker. That'll vault him up into third. All the while, the number 55A of Mark Wirtz is going to come to the line. He, too, is trying to crack the top 5, and he will. He'll follow Anderson up to P3. And Mark Wirtz in his CorvetteParts.net number 55 out of Chesapeake, Virginia, in his family-owned race team, third as things stand.
And as we look at the leaderboard, Eric, 65 1/1000ths of a second separating the top 5. I know we've been privileged to call a lot of really tight tour racing this year, late model stock cars, and I can only imagine as we continue to click the laps on that we will see a tighter and tighter field as we continue to go on. Next pair that is going to be on the racetrack right now will be joined by the number 25 Total Car and Truck Service Chevrolet out of Christiansburg, Virginia. This is 51 years young, Derek Lancaster, that will make his way to turns 3 and 4 to complete his first lap. And especially on this first lap, you see cars that are a little bit sideways. Looks like this car is more under the handling of Derek Lancaster, but so far 15th fastest at a 20.664. Right-hand side of your picture, the JHDD Chevrolet for the Carroll Speed, or excuse me, for 8K Performance out of Dallas, North Carolina. That is Jacob Hefner. who goes quickest on his first lap, 20.343 for the number 95. Second lap through for Lancaster. He is going to be able to find a couple of spots up into the 12th position. Can Hefner build some insurance on his second lap? In fact, he will match it to a thousandth of a second, the lap of 20.343. So some great consistency here for the Hefner's towing and recovery machine. It's Jacob Hefner right now the fastest. He just unseats Landon Huffman at the top of the charts.
Great lap by that of Jacob Hefner. Kind of scale back full-time Cars Tour efforts in 2024. Very sporty every time that he shows up at any racetrack with a late model stock car. Here's a driver trying to keep it in the family, if you will. His father, Jason, 2008 winner of this race. Now it's son Jamie, who is trying to do the same. This is Jamie York out of Reidsville, North Carolina, and his family-owned #1 car, representing Rapco Hauling and Registers Auto Glass. This is his third attempt at this race. Unfortunately, though, he missed the show the last 2 seasons. It's a late model stock car winner at Caraway Speedway. Is that of Jamie York in the 1 car. Right side of your picture, a driver who is no stranger to victory lane in this quadrant of the country out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This is the Aaron Sales and Lease number 95A of Sam Yarbrough. Runner-up finisher here in 2014 was that of Yarbrough, and he is the fastest on the racetrack right now.
By a lot.
Yarbrough coming down to the checkers to see if he can improve on that lap time. That is flirting with the 22nd flat mark, but he's not going to go any faster. Yarbrough clear of the field by a tenth and a half, while Jamie York climbed in 12th.
That is going to be a very competitive time. I know it kind of makes sense, right, that we're going to have faster cars with the way this format is set up, that times are continuing to tick up. But I got to say, that lap of Sam Yarbrough may have some legs to it. He may have some great track position to start the heat races for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, and looking to match that, or perhaps even best at first car. This duo that's going to be out on the racetrack right now, exiting turn number 2. You just mentioned Jamie York to win out. How about father and former winner at this race? He took home a grandfather clock in the 2008 ValleyStar Credit Union 300. The Rapco Hauling and Excavating and Registers Auto Glass Chevrolet, the 18A of Jason York out of Reidsville, North Carolina, will go up to third, 6/1000ths of a second shy of Jacob Hefner's time. Let's see on the right-hand side of your screen. Second car that's going to be out and joining York out on the racetrack, the 07 of Riley Neal out of Walkertown, North Carolina. Been running the modified season at Bowman Gray Stadium this year. Jason York's second lap going to be a little bit slower, so we'll stay in the third position. Meanwhile, the 07 of Riley Neal looking to pick up some time, and he's not going to be able to do it on the second lap as well. Riley Neal, 9th fastest in the 07, just inside the top 10 for the 07 Lindley Plumbing and Garage Machine.
Next driver on the racetrack is carrying a lot of sentimental meaning to his return to this venue. Didn't run this race back in 2023 by results of injuries sustained in a crash earlier in the season. And if you look closely on the hood of that race car, he's carrying a special message to his mother, Pam. It says, "Stay strong and keep fighting, Mom." His mother has been enthralled in an 8-year battle with cancer. And being that we are just a few days away from the month of October, which obviously raises awareness to breast cancer, and as well as all other facets of the terrible disease, Ryan and company want to extend that message to all who may be in an unfortunate circumstance in dealing with cancer of whatever kind. He wants to carry that message along to everyone who is watching along. And Ryan is certainly happy to be back here at Martinsville in his Mid-Carolina Landscaping number 2 car. Wilson, second fastest his first time around. Right side of the picture, the number 61 was that of Justin Hicks, who was the second car on the racetrack, as we watch Wilson contend for the quick time, but it's not going to happen. Justin Hicks may try to do the same. He was third fastest his first time around, and here he comes to the checkered flag. And the Rankins Race Engines number 61 out of Thomasville will not pick up on his second time around. So it is Wilson second, Hicks third in that duo.
In a case here, Eric, where a lot of cars that went out early seem to improve on their second lap, it seems as though that trend has somewhat fallen by the wayside here recently. So we'll see if some drivers are really aiming to get it done on lap 1. And again, with the fact that this is a half-mile racetrack, a lot of tracks around the area, you kind of get a little bit of a dead lap to heat up those tires. Not the case here. You go out of pit road, you take the start-finish line, and you're getting everything that you can for 2 laps around this racetrack, including the driver coming off of turn number 2 in the Racing College Chevrolet out of Bassett, Virginia, the number 73. How about fan favorite Jimmy Mullins coming off at turn number 4 right now to take his first qualifying lap for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. And for Mullins, it's going to be 10th fastest with a history dating back in this race to 1996 and 97, where he made his first 2 attempts to try and get in this race. He hasn't been back in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 since 2016. And on the right-hand side of your picture, a part-time competitor throughout the year, but he has been fast everywhere that he has gone in that 00 Medicorp Tidewater safety shoe and AH Race Car Chevrolet out of King William, Virginia. How about Chase Burrow, 3rd fastest? How about fastest on the racetrack right now? 20.180 for the part-time competitor. He has been quick everywhere that 00 has shown up. Finished 23rd at South Boston and 8th in the Hampton Heat. Currently sits 10th in the Triple Crown standings, but great lap time right there for Chase Burrow.
Give a shout out to our buddy Justin Mintz, who does a lot of stat compilations for Bowman Gray Stadium and a lot of other things. Track record set by Bobby McCarty with the late model stock cars in this event last year. It was at 19.704. We're not seeing the big chunks come out of the lap time as this session continues to roll on. That record may be safe, but we will see. As many heavy hitters remain, including this driver from north of the border. Kind of a late add to the field, if you will. It was announced rather late last week that this Everum Bare Knuckles Fighting Championship number 77B for Chad Bryant Racing would enter the fray, and he clocks in 3rd on his first time around as that of Trayton Lapsevich. Lapsevich, North Wilkesboro winner with the Cars Tour earlier this season. And on the right side of your picture, the 2B, now part-time racer, in his 9th attempt at this race with 6 prior starts. It's the Waltz Engineered Sales number 2B out of Carrollton, Virginia, in Matt Waltz. Lapsevich misses the top spot by 0.02 of a second. We'll see if Waltz could have a significant pickup as he comes to the checkers, and he does, up to 4th for that of Matt Waltz in the 2B car. He rounds out your front 4.
It's getting close, and I think you made a great point there. That 19.7 record, I think, is going to be pretty safe to stand with the fact that, yes, this race typically takes place later in September, early in October, but it is a little bit warmer than what we're accustomed to seeing, so not going to have as much grip out on the racetrack to, I think, challenge for that record. But still the opportunity for this driver to try and challenge for the top spot here, coming off to turn number 2. This is the 1B out of Goldsboro, North Carolina. For Markham Enterprises, this is Clay Jones making his way out of the racetrack right now. A back-to-back Wake County Speedway track champion in late model stocks, and trying to run with the best here at Martinsville on a half-mile rather than the quarter-mile bull ring back in Raleigh, North Carolina. First lap for that 1B, 20.305 for the 1B of Jones. 18 car joining him off of turn number 2. Is also going to be making a second trip around, a couple of 18s. This will be that of Chandler Sherman out of Crownsville, Maryland, in the Skate Zone and Alzheimer's Association Chevrolet. And Sherman, 18th fastest. It matches his car number, and he'll stay there on lap number 2. Meanwhile, Clay Jones will also do the same. He'll stay in that 6th position, clocking in at 20.305.
Next car getting set to roll. That is going to be the number 25A, Elon, North Carolina. This is the Barber Heating and Air, number 25A of Jacob Borst. 4th in points, a 2-time winner at South Boston Speedway in 2024. This is his 4th attempt at this race after a strong debut in 2021 where he finished 7th. He was 15th here 1 year ago, missed the show in 2022. So Borst looking for his 3rd ValleyStar Credit Union 300 start. It will be the first of these pair of cars to come down to the line to lay down a lap time. Chase Burrow still the quickest, right side of your screen. This is the Logan Clark Motorsports entry, but it's Camden Gully, standout at Orange County Speedway. And Cars Tour start there earlier this year after picking up a win a couple of weeks prior. Teaming up with Logan Clark for his shot at another opportunity and making the show at the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. Checkered flag is going to fly for Borst. He climbs in, or clocks in 7th, if you will. Here is the 15 machine of Camden Gully, who sits 4th. Second lap, not able to improve. But Blake, you look at the lap times. Top 6 currently separated by less than 1/10 of a second, and somehow I feel like we're going to get even tighter than that as the session rolls forward.
And of course, worth mentioning with this heat format that top 4 will lead their respective heat to green. So first, second, third, fourth, they'll start first in their heat. Fifth down through 6th, 7th, 8th, they'll start second, and so on as we set the order for these heats. As we turn things over to the 2024 Anderson Motor Speedway track champion piloting number 40 Maverick Steel Buildings Machine out of Jefferson, Georgia. This is Taylor Satterfield, the 36-year-old, who will come down to the stripe this time to complete his lap. He'll be joined alongside another 2 car that is in the field, and by the way, will not just be piloting a late model stock around Martinsville Speedway in a couple of weeks. He had the opportunity to test an MX-5 Cup Mazda machine a couple of weeks ago, and will be back here in a couple of weeks to do that as well, that being the number 2 of Brandon Pierce out of Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Checkered flag out for both of these cars as Brandon Pierce looking to find some speed off of turn number 4. He'll come down to the stripe this time and clock in 16th fastest for that number 2 car as the 40 of Taylor Satterfield. See where that number 40 car is slotted in is 20th fastest for Taylor Satterfield.
After a little bit of assistance from the crew, the next car is set to roll off here for ValleyStar Credit Union qualifying. This will be the 41st car on the racetrack. This driver out of Fredericksburg, Virginia, driving for a race team that is reeling a little bit over the last couple of weeks. This is the Mike Darn Racing number 44, one of the patriarchs of this family and team. Bobby Darn passed away over the course of the last week. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Mike Darn and his entire family. This driver making his 3rd attempt at this race, attempted in 2021 and last year as well, as we're running several NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series races this year at Thorsport. This is the Jones Utilities number 44 of Connor Jones on the left side of your screen. On the right side, frequent cars to our competitor out of Youngsville, North Carolina. This is the Torp Chassis house entry for that of Andrew Grady in the 1A. This is his 3rd attempt as well, trying to make this historic event, with Jones going to be the first car to come down to cement his qualifying effort. Checkered flag is going to wave for that of Connor Jones. Check the timing and scoring as he comes across the line. 21st for that of Connor Jones. Grady trying to improve up to the top 10, and he's going to come up 1 spot shy by 0.02 of a second. Andrew Grady in the 1A 11th. There's now 42 cars been out on the racetrack. Chase Burrow the fastest.
Quickly going to send the next 2 out as working through turns 3 and 4. You can see the number 41 Papa John's Toyota out of Elkwood, Virginia. This is the number 41 of Davey Callahan, a competitor this year at Dominion Raceway, including taking home a victory and 4th in the championship standings at that racetrack. This is his 4th attempt as well at trying to make the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. He was able to run most recently in 2022 with his best finish. And on the right-hand side of your screen, somebody who has kind of taken a little bit of a step back with an injury that he suffered, non-racing related, over the winter this past off-season. Limited some of his time in the car, but he came back with a vengeance to run a couple of ZMAX Cars Tour races. The number 14 out of Trinity, North Carolina for Jimmy Mooring Racing. That is Jared Fryer, who will come across. His first lap was 6th fastest, that being the 14 of Jared Fryer. Second lap is going to slot him up into 5th. Meanwhile, for the Davey Callahan fans out there, it looks like that number 41 car. See exactly where he was slotted into the running order. 23rd it'll be for Davey Callahan.
Next driver on the racetrack, his father won this race back in 1998. He finished 4th here in 2011, and this is his 9th attempt at the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, driving the Gateway Automotive 3D Motorsports number 5 out of Conover, North Carolina. Here is Dexter Knipe Jr. on the racetrack. Former standout track champion at Hickory Motor Speedway, did so back in 2016. His father was a 1997 NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series champion. As Knipe Jr. comes down to complete his first lap, right side of your frame, driving the number 4B, after a 2-year hiatus from racing, made the return with Hedgecock Racing at Tri-County Speedway and turned a lot of heads, did that of the Wilson, North Carolina native of Parker Eatman. He's driving the Southern Bank entry while Knipe Jr. comes to the line to put his qualifying run in the history books. Dexter Knipe Jr. in the 5 is going to come across in 15th spot. As we see our next car come to the line, and Parker Eatman, he will be 14th. Timing and scoring as it listed in the 4A. And that will be a 20.352 for that of Parker Eatman, who cracks the top 15. What he hopes to be another attempt at the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 in his young racing career.
Going to be a pair of drivers here who, for the most part, over their racing efforts in the last couple of years, have called home that of the Florence Motor Speedway. Make his way out in the AK Performance number 16, the Tobaccoville USA and Hartsville Country Club Chevrolet. Out of Hartsville, South Carolina, this is Cody Kelly in the number 16, first car out in this duo. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen another driver who has taken a step back in terms of how often he has been on the racetrack. And we mentioned that of Florence Motor Speedway. He won the Icebreaker last year and has been very competitive in a lot of these big late-model stock car racing. Out of Forest Hill, Maryland, this is the 88A of Doug Barnes Jr. Air Doug, as you would know on your screen, as he comes out of turn 2. It'll be Kelly who comes across the stripe to complete his lap. 7th fastest for the number 16 of Casey Kelly. Both he and his twin brother, it was Cody, by the way, who took home the track championship at Florence Motor Speedway this season. Meanwhile, the 88 of Doug Barnes, who spent a good portion of this race last year, leading some laps. 29th fastest right now for Doug Barnes Jr., 20.486. So Air Doug's got his work cut out for him to try and make the starting field.
Talking to Doug, and he said the loss of on-track time yesterday was certainly something they weren't looking forward to. This is a brand new race car for his own operation that he's trying to put together, seeking additional partners to try to mold what could be a potential 2025 slate. He has got some work to do. You're right, Blake. He's going to be fun to watch for sure. Next on the racetrack, driving the 7C. This is the International Trading Corp entry out of Kannapolis, North Carolina. Youngest winner in Cars Tour history. Did so in a Pro Late Model at Dillon last year. And he's already got himself a couple of wins in the Pro Late Model side in 2024 as well. That's Tristan McKee in the 7, who is on the left side of your picture. On the right side, the number 51 car with that of Ryan Matthews, who is on the racetrack as well. Matthews out of Topping, Virginia, the James Rivers Nurseries entry, multi-time winner at Dominion. Finished 16th here in 2022 and 26th 1 year ago. McKee comes down to put his second lap on the board. He sits 12th. We'll watch Ryan Matthews in the 51 work his way to the checkers. Matthews is going to pick up considerably compared to his first lap. It's only going to be good enough, though, for 17th, as no one has been able to touch Chase Burrow's time of a 20.180. It appears as though Blake Burrow laid down that lap time a bit of a while ago. It seems like many of the cars that have gone out recently have been struggling to try to find similar pace. Yeah,
wondering if the track is just not working in the favor of some of these cars that are starting to go out a little bit later as we get kind of towards 112, 113 local time. A lot of sunshine that's been adorning this racetrack, so perhaps a little bit of a loss of grip for some of these drivers that perhaps may be going out a little bit later. Sure, it won't slow down, though. This number 45, Prince William Marina Chevrolet out of Manassas, Virginia, has been fast every time he's been paired with the Hedgecock Racing Enterprises team, of which he's raced for a number of different teams this year, but has a pair of top 10 efforts in the Z-Max Cars Tour this season. It is that of Mason Diaz on the left-hand side of your screen. Meanwhile, right-hand side, joining him on the racetrack right now to complete his qualifying time, you see the Flying 11 out of Littleton, North Carolina, Buddy Isles Jr. in the Per Your Tank Lines machine. And Mason Diaz going to clock in 9th fastest for the number 45 as he completes both of his laps. His second lap was not better than his initial effort. And Buddy Isles Jr., that number 11 car, we'll see exactly where he stacks in. It's going to be at the top of the charts for Buddy Isles Jr., 20.112. What a lap for Buddy Isles.
A lot of Virginia Race fans are certainly excited about that one. Of course, we lost Roy Hendrick not that long ago. And that Flying 11 VA, synonymous with the Hendrick family. Interesting tie-in there to Buddy Isles and that generational historic car that we would see run and win several times here. We'll tell you more about that later on. Here is the number 55 car with a new pilot behind the wheel. This driver, after clinching the track championship at Dominion Raceway, got the call to slide into this car with TRD's support in the Mobile 1 entry. Landon Pembleton, 2021 ValleyStar Credit Union 300 winner. Now joining the Leopold Performance team, he clocks in 9th fastest on his first lap. Three-time Cars Tour champion Bobby McCarty in the R&S Race Cars number 6. Also trying to lay down a flyer. He was your quick time setter 1 year ago. Pembleton comes to the line. He will not improve as he clocks in 10th quickest, while McCarty was 7th his first time through. He'll try to jump up to pole here on his second lap. He will go faster, but not enough to improve on the stopwatch in terms of positioning. So the 2021 Virginia Triple Crown champion Bobby McCarty sits in 7th spot for now.
In terms of cars that we have left to send out, again, it's about 20 if we take the numbers that we had earlier today in practice, but a couple of cars that were slotted to go out looks as though they may not be able to make the effort to have a qualifying time. So just shy of a little under 20 cars or so that are left to still qualify. You mentioned some former winners of this race that are competing here this afternoon. How about this driver on the racetrack right now, the 44-year-old out of Martinsville, Virginia? Former winner here in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300, the 51A of Timothy Peters. Joined alongside the 7. We talked about winners last year. Trevor Ward, that is the older brother of young Trevor Ward. That is Dylan Ward in the DeWalt Performance Chevrolet out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And first lap through, former winner in Timothy Peters, going to be 13th fastest for that 51A. We'll check in with Dylan Ward's time. It is 16th at a 20.313. Plenty of positions available for both drivers if they can find some speed here on lap number 2. Peters is not able to accomplish that feat. We'll see here off of turn number 4. Can Dylan Ward find some more speed in that number 7? It looks like the answer is no. So plenty of cars, Eric, here. It is one lap here for qualifying at Martinsville Speedway, but some solid efforts here that will put them hopefully within a top 5 starting spot in their respective heats.
Got about 18 cars to go from what I can see out the window here on the front stretch. This is a driver who was picked up late model stock car racing quite quickly. 3-time winner in the Z-Max Cars Tour. Orange County Caraway on our second stop at A Speedway in his rookie season. Pole winner at Langley, and recently won his second ARCA Menard Series event. Ironically, both of those wins coming on dirt. Did so at DeCoin back on Labor Day weekend. This is a Kevin Harvick Incorporated number 29, the driver out of Davidson, North Carolina, in the Mobile 1 Toyota for that of Brent Cruz in the 29 car. Another Z-Max Cars Tour winner joins him on the Speedway. This is the family-owned operation of car number 04. The driver out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, in the Beeson Tire and Auto and Affordable Heating and Air entry. Ronnie Bassett Jr., who won the throwback event at Hickory with the Cars Tour as well. Cruz is going to be the first one to come to the line to sew up his qualifying efforts.
Oh, man.
And he is using up all the racetrack to jump from 14th to 12th. So Cruz outside the top 10 so far with several cars to go. Bassett was 17th his first time around. Here he comes to the line, and he will move up 3 spots. So Ronnie Bassett Jr. in the 04 to 14th, while Brent Cruz is 12th quickest with 16 cars remaining.
Right now, top 5 covered by 1/10 of a second, and starting to look at some cars that are going to come out here that you look at as potential favorites entering this weekend to try and win this race. And how about this duo right here? 2 drivers that know what it's like to climb up on that stage and take home a grandfather clock. How about the number 12 Cherokee Underground and Platinum Utility Machine out of Newport, Tennessee? This is the 12 of Jake Crum, the 33-year-old who won the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 in 2009. And how about Peyton Sellers in the number 26 Clarence's Steakhouse Danville Toyota and Sowers Construction Toyota, who will be joining him to make a pair of qualifying laps. First lap through for Jake Crum, and the number 12 is going to be 20th fastest. We'll see if Peyton Sellers has a shot to try and run the quick time, and it looks like first lap through for Peyton Sellers. Having to scroll through here to see exactly where timing and scoring slots him. It's going to be for Peyton Sellers. We'll get that again in just a moment. Looks like second lap through not going to be any faster. In fact, it will be faster for Jake Crum. Sellers second time through. He's also going to find a fair amount of speed on his second lap. 6th fastest for Peyton Sellers in the number 26.
So Buddy Isles Jr., still the quick time setter, as one of the longest tenured drivers in this event's history. In terms of an active competitor, this is his 20th attempt at this race. 4 previous top 5s with a best finish of 3rd in 2011. Two-time winner on what was the Pro Cup Tour, multi-time winner across several local tracks in the region, especially South Boston, which is his hometown. This is a family-owned team in the Coldwell Bankers Elite Mike Bledsoe Mechanical number 17B for that of Stacy Puryear, who is on the racetrack. Joining him on the Speedway, just about wrapped up what was another good year at Ace Speedway. He's a driver who is carrying the hometown banner in both Cars Tour efforts he attempted at that Speedway as well. He's gotten himself a championship honors there in years past. This is the Kernersville, North Carolina native in the Gastown and Dillon Tree service number 33 for that of Dylan Harville. Here's Puryear, going to be the first one to come to the line to complete this effort. Harville is currently 7th, while Puryear was 2nd fastest that time through. We'll see if Harville can climb further up the running order, and he'll slow down on lap 2. So Puryear, 11 thousandths off at a lap laid down by Isles, while Harville, certainly one of the more smaller and family-operated organizations in the field here tonight, 7th as things stand.
And you know what's probably helping some of these drivers as we continue to go on? Look at the cloud cover that we have right now. Been adorning the racetrack for the last number of laps, and with the fact that you're having to get these tires to try and hook up as soon as you go out there, it's a little bit of help to hopefully cool this track down. So we saw the speeds continue to slow down. Now they may start picking up as there's a fair amount of cloud cover that's going to be over this racetrack right now. Talk about former winners. Here's another one in the 87 Hopkins Lumber Chevrolet out of Catawba, Virginia. This is Mike Looney, who was the 2016 ValleyStar Credit Union 300 champion, and his first lap will clock him into 8th. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen, that is the 4 of Kyle Dudley, the Tyler Hash at Farm Bureau Insurance Chevrolet out of Roanoke, Virginia. And his lap is going to be fastest. Kyle Dudley to the top of the charts on his first go-around. Mike Looney improves to 6th at a 20.195. Can Kyle Dudley crack the 19-second barrier? He comes to the flagman and Brandon Willard, but it's not going to happen on lap number 2. Kyle Dudley, who won the pole at the Thunder Road Harley-Davidson 200, looks like he may just do the same at Martinsville this afternoon.
Dudley's known for a couple of things in his racing career, one of which the tuxedo-style driving suit that he typically wears, the other more of a celebratory effort. Maybe we'll talk about it later, or maybe we'll see it when he's celebrating alongside of that grandfather clock in what was a great run for that of Dudley as the next 2 cars enter the Speedway. This driver is making his first attempt in the ValleyStar Credit Union 300. He ran in South Boston this past August, picking up a 6th-place finish in weekly competition. He's a multi-time winner at that track. This is the Sharon Lax Incorporated number 29A out of Long Island, Virginia. Here is Stuart Cruz, who was very fast in the opening practice session. We'll see what he could do up against the lap times that have been laid down by his competitors at this juncture of the session. Right side, if you were to put together power rankings in terms of Cars Tour performance at this point of the season, no doubt this driver would be number 1. He clocks in 4th fastest his first time around. This is the Leisure Time Rentals, Sayville Millington Motorsports 15B out of Statesville, Ryan Millington. 4th fastest his first time around as Cruz comes to the line. He goes to 4th quickest on lap 2. What can Millington do as he comes to the line? And Millington will slow down on lap 2. Both drivers make their way up into the top 5. It's Dudley, Isles, Puryear, Cruz, and Millington, your top 5, with several heavy hitters still to come.
Starting to get good here, isn't it, Eric? And
I love it.
Millington went out and matched his first time in so many cars that we saw earlier today that looked hooked up in practice, and this car did as well. What a beautiful paint scheme, I will say, as well, on the side of this number 17 TC Construction Wind Site Development and Roberts Muffler and Auto Repair Ford out of Great Falls, Virginia. You saw this driver mixing it up at the front of the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 last year. This is Daniel Silvestri, who has spent a majority of his racing campaign this year running in Legends cars, but has been fast as soon as he hopped into a late model stock. He'll go up to 8th on his first lap through. On the right-hand side of your screen, how about the driver that just capped off a championship at Ace Speedway and nearly did the same at South Boston this year as well? That is the number 77 of Blake Stallings, who comes across the stripe this time, completes lap number 1, will not match the time that was put down by Silvestri, as Silvestri will find some more speed on lap number 2. He goes up into 6th. What can Blake Stallings do with his number 77 RNS race car machine? Looks like that 77A is going to be 28th fastest for Blake Stallings, 20.314, smack dab in the middle of the field.
Hard to believe you've had 68 cars on the racetrack already as part of this qualifying session. So, Blake, if someone doesn't have that good of a run, we've got to scroll quite a way to find where that lap time may lie. Everyone who's left to go hopes we don't have to scroll that far to see where they're going to slot in, including this driver out of Full Shear, Texas, in his rookie campaign with the Z-Max Cars Tour. This is the Velastin per year tank lines number 23. Trying to make this race for the second year in a row. Had a tremendous effort in his inaugural go of it last year with a 7th place finish. Here's Cade Brown on the racetrack alongside on your screen of the driver trying to do something that nobody has ever done in the history of this race. Win back-to-back. That is your defending winner. In the Digital Repairs Superior Plumbing number 77 out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Trevor Ward. He's also your defending Virginia Triple Crown winner. Is that a Ward? It's going to be Brown the first to the checkers. He was 3rd his first time around. He will stay there for now. We'll see what Ward could do as he was outside of the top 10 on his first lap. Trevor Ward to the line to close out his qualifying run. He will bump up into the top 10, but not the top 5. 6th for your 2023 winner and Virginia Triple Crown champion in Trevor Ward.
Well, just a handful of cars left. We talked earlier about the top 5 being separated by a 1/10 of a second. How about the top 9 cars separated exactly by 1/10 of a second, all trying to chase the time of Kyle Dudley at a 20.080. And I don't know if there's a man more capable or more hungry to do so right here than the driver behind the 03. I think a lot of late model stock car fans would look at this car and immediately see Butterbean behind the wheel, but it is not the case this weekend with Brendan Queen running out at Kansas Speedway, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series last night out of Alton, Virginia. It is a welcome back to competition for Lee Pulliam, who goes 10th fastest on his first trip around for the 2011 and 2014 champion of this race. Right-hand side of your screen. How about Carson Quapple, Virginia Motorsports out of Martinsville, North Carolina, the Bass Pro Shops machine. We know he'll be fast, and indeed he is. He's 6th fastest in the number 8 machine. Pulliam not able to improve on his second go-around. We'll see if Quapple can buck that trend off of turn number 4 down to the start-finish line, and Quapple will also slow down by 2 1/1000ths on lap number 2. So Lee Pulliam, at least for now, still amongst the top 10, and Carson Quapple, the Junior Motorsports machine, 6th fastest with what looks like, Eric, maybe our final pair of cars that we're going to send out this afternoon for qualifying.
Kyle Dudley and Buddy Isles both know they're going to start on the pole for one of the qualifying heat races. What is on the line? $5,000 for the Martinsville Speedway Quick Time Award and a potential pole shot for the remaining 2 cars to further ensure themselves into tonight's 200-lap main event should they run up front during their qualifying races. 2023 late model stock champion at South Boston, traveled around a lot in 2024. Here is the Creedmoor Forest Products number 5A of Carter Langley, and also your 2024 second year running number 22 car for that of the Nelson Motorsports entry in Connor Hall. Trying to win a Triple Crown, trying to win the Cars Tour title later this season, and trying to win a grandfather clock after this team was so close last year. Here comes Langley to the checkered flag. It looks as though Carter Langley is not going to be able to crack the top 10. He is 13th. Here comes Connor Hall, the final car to close out qualifying. Hall will go to 2nd, and that means Kyle Dudley will win the $5,000 Martinsville Speedway Quick Time Award and will lead the field down for green for the first qualifying race of the afternoon. Car number 4, Kyle Dudley, the quick time setter for the ValleyStar Credit Union 300 here this afternoon. Wow. And that was just qualifying.
I know that this is a race that can be full of drama at times, and boy, did we see a lot of it as it got down towards the end here in qualifying. But how about the effort? We talk about late model stock car racing and the state of it right now, that you have a mix of those teams and those who have their family operations, and what an effort here for Kyle Dudley. Second pole in this year's ValleyStar Credit Union 300. You can already see it right there, that tuxedo fire suit that you were talking about. A little bit of flair there for Kyle Dudley. What an effort for the Tyler Hashett Farm Bureau Insurance, the DCT machine. You can see the battle scars that car has adorned on the side of it. That is a family-owned operation through and through. And for the second straight year, you can see a handshake from many of the dignitaries down there, crews and competitors alike, as Kyle Dudley, again, not locked into the show. I think that's worth mentioning. But as you mentioned, $5,000 richer for just getting the quick time. What a lap it was as he best. How about Buddy Isles Jr. on the front row as well? What a story we have at the front of this field.
Kyle Dudley, I hinted earlier, not only the fire suit is a good talking point for this young man and his brand, the other element is he also celebrates typically with a beverage funnel at the end of races. I think it's a little bit too early in the afternoon. I don't think that bottle to throttle time is going to work out well for him with the qualifying races coming up about an hour and a half from now. But you can see he is pumped as he will be on the pole for our first 25-lap qualifying race. And as Blake alluded to, the job is not done yet for this young man. He will be starting on the pole for that 25-lap race. Buddy Isles will be on the pole for race number 2. Cade Brown on the pole for race 3. And Stacy Puryear in his 20th try at this event will be starting on the pole for qualifying race number 4. The objective for all cars that laid down a time in this session, 74 strong, finish in the top 10 in your qualifying race, and you are in for the chance at a Ridgeway grandfather clock at this historic facility.
I love seeing that for Kyle Dudley. You can tell he is just beside himself right now, so happy. And again, all the nerves that go into a day like today, which is already more so than what you would typically see at Martinsville. Short practice time. I know for a lot of teams, this was kind of, you had to be sure that you unloaded off the trailer well because you weren't going to have as much time to make those big swings and adjustments. And what an effort for Kyle Dudley and his team to figure that all out. And I know there's so many that will love to see Kyle Dudley both outside the fence and inside the catch fence that are happy for him.
Well, Kyle Dudley's going to take a couple of moments to allow this all to sink in. $5,000 richer is that young man and that team. Qualifying races coming up at approximately 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time. We've got a lot of interesting content pieces to roll along with you from all of our partners here with NASCAR Regional and FloRacing to tell you some more of the stories going into this afternoon's race.
I wonder who he's FaceTiming. I wonder who our friend Matthew Dillner hooked him up with.
We'll try to get the scoop on that, and we're going to step aside. Again, we'll be back 2:45 p.m. to lead you into the most pivotal qualifying races you will see anywhere all year long. Everybody's still vying for a spot in the 2024 ValleyStar Credit Union 300, and we've got you covered all day long here on FloRacing. We'll be back to Martinsville right after this.